Alexander Pope once said in his essay on criticism, it is harder to say if greater want of skill appear in writing or in judging ill. And the point of that was to kind of the claim, or in his essay on criticism, was which one is it? Where is more skill evident, in writing or in judging, in criticizing? And so today, the title of this video is Why I Read. And I'm going to be talking about why I read and the rubric that I'm going to be using to criticize some of the books that I have in my shelf, or when I'm doing a video or a review. And today I'm going to be talking about that. As a reader, ideas age, born, and die. So ideas are always constantly changing. I may have a take on a certain book. I might have a criticism, but that criticism can evolve and can change. I might edit it. I might, do another take on it. So the point is, why do I read? What drives me? What motivates me? What's the purpose of my reading and, of me doing these TBRs, collecting books, and always reading? Why? I was asking myself that question, contemplating as a rhetorical question, and just trying to figure that out or find the answer in these books. Why do I do the things that I do? And another point that I want to discuss is that my paradigm has shifted as far as reading is concerned. Usually I read, I have a few genres that I read, but the way I used to read is I was always constantly trying to, finish this book. I'm measuring, counting how many books I read a month, how many in the series have I, I'm on volume 1. I want to go through volume 1, 2, 3, 4. Fast paced, get it on. Time is running out. And I was always kind of like judging or measuring myself based on how many books, how many manga volumes I've read, So that paradigm, that fast reading is changing. And I'm going to be kind of getting into more, slow, controlled reading. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't have enough time to be reading all the time personally, and just live in general. But I've reached a point right now where I've read, enough, or my taste has matured to a point where now I look for other things. The purpose of my reading is not for whatever it is that I was seeking has changed. That's pretty much what I'm saying. And the criticism, or the way that I'm going to be reading, or how I will judge, will kind of based on certain aspects. And these are like some of the criteria, or these are some of the guideposts that I will use. First is that I will care less about finishing series or the number of series in a book. That will not dissuade me from trying out a book. I will not worry if the series is incomplete. Certain things that used to kind of hinder me from maybe picking up a book, that has changed now. 2, I will not hesitate to DNF books. I've been like, sometimes I feel bad if I don't finish a book, or I don't know, somehow, some way, there is this part that I have to finish this book before I move on to the next one. Sometimes maybe the book is not ready for me. Maybe the relation, maybe my mind is not ready to take in that information. So perhaps another time. So sometimes the book chooses the reader and the reader doesn't choose the book, or, vice versa. It works that way. And I just kind of have to be okay with the fact that some series are not for me. Some series, I don't have to waste my breath, my time, my mental energy to try to find out why this book is interesting, if that is not apparent. Number 3, kind of the reason why I read then is I read to learn. I read for information. I read for enjoyment, as a pastime, and as a hobby that I am passionate about. So this is something that is a part of me, and I am a part of it. So these are the reasons. Now, some of the criteria or the rubric that I will be using to judge books is based on the premise. So one thing is, I was always kind of giving numbers to, I don't usually do ratings, but some people say, 5 stars. They tell either a book is good or bad. There was this idea that I read, I don't know who it was, but once somebody said that books are either written well or written bad. So they're not good or bad, they're either written well or written bad. And in that sense, I think I will judge the book based on the premise. So the premise that is at the outset, in the beginning, the first page, or the initial premise that the author uses to capture our attention, the hook. If that premise is solved, or how far along the goal that the author set himself, the setup, did that pay off, right? So that's like one of the criteria that I'm going to be using to judge books, whether it's good or bad, whether it's written well or not written well, is going to depend on that. I will judge kind of the tone, the style that the author uses. I will kind of use that to is it interesting? Does it break the barrier? Is it doing something different? What kind of technique is it using? Like if it's a novel, if it's poetry, if it's manga, each one within its own domain, within its own limitation as a medium. How has the author used that medium to convey his thoughts and ideas, or how has he used this medium, whether it's paneling, to his advantage, whether it's the novel, the format, how has the author used the format to his advantage to make the story better or to convey the medium? How effective is the medium on conveying the theme or of the book, the thesis method? And obviously we all know of the three, the triangle, kind of like the message. So there is the writer, the audience, and the message, so it's the methodology. Those are kind of like the three. They work together. You can't have one without the other. You can have a writer, but there has to be a reader. And what is being read is the book, so the medium that is being used to convey that information. It is a tool for storing information so that another person can come later and experience that information. Now moving on to shelf life in general. So those are kind of like the criteria that I will be using to judge books or judge the type of material that I read. I usually read comics, manga, and some nonfiction, and I usually read fantasy. But whatever it is that I'm reading, I'm going to use it within its own criteria, within its domain, whatever genre it's in, whatever format. I'm going to use some of these criteria. And it's still, my criticism is still a work in progress. Now, before I move on to shelf life, let me touch on the criticism that I will be applying. Like I said, I will not be using a rating because I feel like that's ingenuous or is a little bit too arbitrary. When somebody says a book is 7 out of 10, it's kind of like, what does that mean? Is 7 out of 10 on what scale? What is 7 out of 10? Generally, it's kind of like a C plus, but I understand that part. But those numbers don't mean nothing. Like for some, it's arbitrary. Anybody can say, I can say 6 out of 10, and another person can say 7 out of 10, and the person that said 6 out of 10 maybe enjoyed it or had a better understanding of the text. That could be the case. So instead of doing that and giving a person like, the 6 out of 10, this book was 5 stars, this book was, no, I'd rather, talk about how interesting, what is it about this book that's interesting? What piqued my interest? And also like my reading experience, because everybody's gonna have a different reading experience, and I wanna share that here. I will, based on kind of like, say, answer 3 questions I will try to answer 3 questions in my criticism. Should I recommend it? Is it recommendable? Should I recommend this book? Was it good enough? Did I love it so much that I'm going to recommend it? How recommendable is it? Is it rereadable? Am I going to reread it? Am I going to go back to it in the future? Am I going to go on a second date with it? Will the book stay on the shelf in my library? Is it collectible, for me, right? So those, each one is kind of like, it depends on me. Like, so like at the end of the day, these standards are not like standards for everybody. These are just standards for me in a way. So those are my criticism. Moving on to the shelf life of books that are going to be coming into the library, books that are going to be coming into the library, books that are going to be staying in my library, lifelong friends, stuff like that. Well, those they're going to be like I said earlier. I read because I love reading, but at the same time also within the books, I kind of like the pacing. I think of books similar to people, and when you're having a conversation with a person, is different people, different, same way in a way. The book can talk back, but in a way I am thinking of having a conversation with a person that died, the author, and whatever it is that they wanted to convey. That is the conversation that I'm having with this individual, and I'm learning more, rereading. So in a way, it's different. Yes, it's not people, but I kind of like the style of books. I have a few friends that I spend time with. I don't really socialize as much, but there are a couple of people in my life that I care about, that I value their time, I value their friendship, I hope they value me too. But they're close friends. A limited number of people that I associate with and talk to on a daily basis. But books are a little bit different in that I can pick up one and just start talking. And it's not the same comparison, and in a way it might be apples to oranges, but the theme or the idea is that it takes a lot of time to know a person, whereas the book is easier. The pacing is accessible, right? So that's really why I prefer to kind of make long friendships or have this intimate conversation with books that I could have with people too. So for the most part, The journey is a process, and I think the journey is the point, right? In the beginning, I was trying to kind of like paint myself as this type, but that's not the point. The point is not to paint myself as at a certain category, like brushstrokes, canvas, broader, using broader brushstrokes to just label something. I don't like that. I like to be a little bit more specific, and because of that, I believe books are like people in a way, somewhat, and they come into my life like people. Either they are strangers, and then later on they become acquaintances. Later on they might become long friends. Maybe a book that I will keep at my bed as a shorthand. I go back to different passages, and I can use it as a guide. Something that spoke to my soul or something like that. Now, I cherish most of these moments, like most of the moments, me going to libraries, different bookstores, hopping around, and the conversation that I have with people on a certain book that we both liked, and the conversation that can spark from that. These are moments that I cherish, that I care about, the impulses, the title that has startled me out of my reverie. These things affect me in a way. And going forward, this is more like the procedure or the standard operating procedure for the channel, if you will. And yeah, the point or the conclusion is that I care about books, I care about manga, I care about letters, writing, all that. And whatever it is going to be coming forth on the channel, we'll find out together. Anyhow, thanks for watching. If you are a returner, thanks for coming back. If you are new, welcome. But anyhow, enjoy your day and peace.